Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm very excited for today's webinar, and I hope you are too. I'm Sarah. I lead marketing here at Vaughn, and I'm really glad that you carved out time today. A quick housekeeping list before we get started, and this also gives people a little bit of time to join us before we get into the meat of the content. This webinar is going to be around 45 minutes to an hour. If we have time for questions, I will be very happy to take them. So as things come up for you during the webinar, drop them in the chat or the Q&A as we go. I'm sure you all know how to use that. We've all been in these webinars many times before. I'll be watching it and keeping an eye on it. Um, Also, if we don't get to your question, don't worry. I always do a post-webinar blog post where I collect all the questions and get answers for them and then send it out. So you will get your question answered even if it doesn't get answered today during the live webinar. Um, the other thing I always like to mention during these webinars is that this webinar is for revenue leaders, sales leaders, and sometimes a few other department leaders on the revenue team. That means that everyone who's here today are your people. They're my people. These are all the people that we want to network with, and networking is sometimes really tough to do. It's hard to get connected to other people in our industry and our departments. So, this is a perfect opportunity to share your LinkedIn URL in the chat if you are interested in other people following you, connecting with you, and growing your network of people that you might share ideas and be able to ask questions of in the future. So I do invite everybody to do that. I'll do mine myself after I'm done talking here, and I'd love everyone to connect with me if you're willing. Okay, so here's how today is going to go. In a few minutes, I am going to bring out our CEO and co-founder, Sahil, and he and I are going to have a short conversation of what Vaughn actually is, who we built it for, and the problem that we are seeing that revenue teams are running into over and over again. He's going to show you Vaughn quite quickly. It won't be a very long part of the presentation, but just to give you the context about it so you understand what it is before we get into the next part of the conversation. Then I have one of our customers here. His name is Kevin. He's the VP of Revenue Operations at Demand Science, and he's going to give you his honest version of what it's like to bring Vaughn into the organization. And he's also going to address some of the build versus buy questions that we all have when we're thinking about what should we be doing with all the different AI that's out there and available for us today. After Kevin shares his experiences with us, then our head of AI, his name is Sundeep, he's going to join us and take you a little bit under the hood of Vaughn and show you the part that is genuinely hard to build, really what is the special sauce and the magic that is behind Vaughn. Um, One last thing that I want to say, and I know that Sundeep and Sahil are both going to repeat this during their presentations, but please don't take our word for any of this. Please listen, please ask questions, but the best thing you can do after today is give Vaughn a try for yourself. We do make that quite easy for you. I'll be putting some links in the chat, and you can take us up on that and try it for yourself. We would love to show you that. All right, at this moment, I would love to invite Sahil to join me on stage. Sahil is our CEO and co-founder here at Vaughn. Sahil, thanks for joining me. Hi.
Hey, excited to do this.
Awesome. All right, so Sahil, the first thing is I would love to ask you what on earth made you decide that Vaughn needs to exist? What were you seeing in the market and what made you decide I'm going to go build this thing?
Before starting Vaughn, so Vaughn is a new product of Rattle, and we ran Rattle for 5 years, and we pivoted Rattle to Vaughn. I think Rattle as a product was a Salesforce Slack automation for revenue teams. And Rattle has 200 customers. To acquire those 200 customers, I have personally met with more than 4,000 RevOps people over the course of last many years. And I think there are two main things that have happened around the same time. Actually, both are related to each other. One is it became clear that these AI model capabilities are increasing at a rapid pace.
Mhm.
Uh, but trying to fit these AI models on a legacy SaaS infrastructure does not work.
Yeah.
That is like driving a Ferrari at 40 miles per hour. And we tried adding AI to a legacy SaaS infrastructure, and we kept failing again and again. And we knew that this was helpful in the Rattle era, but it became clear that hey, we have to start from the ground up with a new technical architecture. So that was the technical piece. But the bigger piece was that the problem that we were trying to solve with Rattle, which was visibility and send alerts out to let people know what is happening,
Hmm.
we were very clear that you can now solve the problem in a much deeper way using AI.
Yeah.
And today we'll talk about how do you solve that problem. But uh, the technical shift and the market shift became very clear that there is a new intelligence layer that will come up, and that is something that became born.
Awesome. Okay. I know you have some slides that you're going to take us through to help us understand Vaughn, but before you do that, what's your elevator pitch? How do you tell people who've never heard of Vaughn, who don't know the category, what it is? Set a little bit of context for us.
One would feel like a genuine headcount on the RevOps team.
Okay.
That's it. Every company that I've met with, nobody has said we have enough people in the RevOps team, and nobody has said that I don't have a backlog that is months, quarters, years long.
Right.
Imagine getting a RevOps headcount that Imagine getting a RevOps headcount that can work at a much faster speed and can clear that backlog. So humans can work on the strategic work and not the operational day to day.
I hope that Kevin tells some stories that bring
Yeah.
this up. I think that he will, but he said something to us yesterday, or maybe it was even this morning, where he said, "I finally feel like I can breathe through the
Yeah.
all the work that I have going on." I think that's a cool thing that I've seen and experienced with Bond too. All right,
Yeah.
last question I have for you, Sahil, and then I'll turn it over to you to share your slides. We talk about RevOps a lot. There's a lot of RevOps people who registered for this event who are here today or who will watch the recording later. Who is Bond for?
Anyone who relies on RevOps in the company. So the first person who uses one is actually RevOps themselves.
Okay.
Because RevOps wishes there were other people on the team. RevOps is always trying to fight for headcount on the team, sometimes successfully, many times unsuccessfully. But who relies on RevOps in the company? Every single persona.
Yeah, I do.
Your Yeah, like your CRO, your CMO, your CFO, so executive layer, the minus one, VPs of sales, VPs of CS, VPs of finance. The one layer below that, your sales managers, your CS managers, your SCs managers, your BDR managers. And you know what? If AEs and CSMs had access to RevOps, I know that it's very hard for them to get any task into the backlog for RevOps. They will use RevOps as well for scoring their accounts and identifying deal risk and churn signals, etc. So who is it RevOps? Who is Vaughn for? It starts with RevOps, but imagine who would use RevOps if you had infinite people on the RevOps team.
Yeah.
Every single person in the business team.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, Sahil, I'm going to turn it over to you to share the slides that you've prepared. I know there have been several people who have joined while you and I were talking, though. So while you do that, I want to just give a little bit of context for everyone on what today is going to be about. So right now, if you've just joined recently, Sahil is going to walk us through what is Vaughn, why he built it, high level of how it works. Then we have one of our customers, the VP of RevOps from Demand Science. His name is Kevin. He's going to join us and share what it was like to bring Vaughn into his organization and some of the use cases he used it for. And then we're going to have our head of AI walk us through what is the magic behind Vaughn, what makes it special, and what makes it different from what you could just build for yourself. All right, Sahil, over to you again.
Yeah. So I will take maybe max 10 minutes and I want to show everyone the product. I know that this won't, you won't be slide decked to death. But I do want to set the context before I show you the product and show you one use case. Um, the way we think about one is it's a headcount on the RevOps team. What is RevOps? RevOps is the system of intelligence today for go-to-market. While sales is amazing at going and winning individual deals, whenever it comes to processes and standardization of processes, that's where RevOps comes in. What happens today, though? The data exists in so many different systems. In fact, I even hate using the word silos because, like, if you use a word for the last 100 years since technology came in, does is that even a word? Uh, so your data, but it exists in silos. It exists in your CRM, your data warehouse, your call recorder, your email platform, your seller notes, your Google Drive, your SharePoints, your Gong, Clary, Seismics of the world. We haven't even gone into the outside data, which is in Clay, LinkedIn Sales Nav, and so many other places. Customer 360 has been a dream for so long, but Salesforce will still sell you Customer 360 and you will buy and be disappointed. But the problem is that what happens today, because the data exists in so many places, like if I need any insight, whether that is on a particular deal or whether that is on my entire book of business or that is on my business, usually who will you go to? You will go to RevOps. If you are a CRO on this webinar right now or you're listening after it has taken place, who do you go to when you need insight? And for any sort, you go to RevOps. And if you are a RevOps person who's listening, you know that they come to you. You know that they come to you 5 times a day when they already know that you have 100 things on your plate. So what happens? You ask RevOps for insight, you wait in line. If you are a CRO with an urgent board request, then you might be able to skip the line. But otherwise, you're stuck in this queue. Then you get a report, and you want to dig deeper into that report. You do some back and forth, and then eventually you take action on whatever insight you got. This process takes days, sometimes weeks, rarely hours. But with one, you ask one to do something, you get the answer, you get the insight, but you can take action on that insight in minutes. Everything happens in the same platform. This is not an insight only platform. This is get insight and take action within minutes. We'll talk about how this happens. There's insane amount of engineering that is involved to make this usable. And our head of AI, Sandeep, he will talk later in this webinar, and he will talk about how that is possible. So with one, we don't want to just answer your questions. We will answer them better than anyone else in the world, but we want to turn them into living and operational systems that you can then rely on. I'll give you one example. I'll show this example to you in my environment, but then I want to talk to you about a few other examples so that you can get your mind running. The first is deal risk. There is so much effort being spent on identifying deal risk in every one-on-one, in every forecasting call, in every pipeline review. You definitely have 3 meetings on a calendar every week to talk about deal risk. No matter if you are a company with 2 sellers or if you are a company with 200 sellers or 2000 sellers even, you are talking about deal risk. Now, typically what happens is you want to analyze what is deal risk in your business. You want to analyze historical win-loss patterns by looking at buyer communication, which is in calls, emails, seller notes, and then maybe you even using CRM data. And then you want to use that analysis to then score your existing deals, uh, and use that analysis to help sellers identify what to do next. Now, how many people here have really done that? We know this takes weeks and months. And we know that you have bought forecasting platforms that claim they do this, but nobody does it on a per company basis. It's still a industry-wide algorithm that is applied. So let me show you how you would go from analysis to productionizing that analysis in 10 minutes. Um, so this is what one looks like. It's a very simple chat-based interface, but this is only how you start. when you start productionizing things, it will look very different. So let's take an example. I have a folder here called demo, and I'm going to bring up this chat right here. So the first thing I did is I asked, and let me zoom in if this is not too clear, which is look at Vaughn AI data for all historical new business and Vaughn deals and help me predict which factors lead to winning or losing deals. I do know how to spell losing. I was using speech to text. So Vaughn has speech to text, and sometimes it's not perfect. Um, but yes, I do know how to. I know Sarah is looking at me like, Sahil, I thought you were pretty particular about grammar. And then I would say, help me predict which factors lead to deal outcomes by looking at all new business deals. Because then I want to apply this rubric to my current pipeline to understand what my team should be doing. Uh, See here where it says Vaughn AI data. What Vaughn does is when you connect it to your systems, it runs for a few days just to normalize all your data and puts it into a Vaughan AI data store. Because your data as it is right now, it is not ready for agents. You can summarize a few things, you can give it a few call transcripts, it can analyze them, but it can't go through thousands and hundreds of thousands of records. So that is what Vaughan AI does. And then it came back after 4 minutes and 5 seconds. And as you can see, like it went through almost 3,000 closed deals and it made all these queries onto the system. And then it came back with, hey, I analyzed 2,961 closed new business deals. And like you won how many deals, whatever the average ARR is, what's the cycle. But then it's telling me what are win accelerators. And I can see that when we have met the economic buyer and they're supportive, my win rate is 86%. And all the way down to, hey, when it's a demo request inbound, my win rate is 21%. So these are some accelerators that are over the baseline. I think the baseline somewhere is like 9.7%. But then it's also tells you like what are some deal killers. And obviously, no timeline stated, customer ghosting I mean, they are not surprising. But it says conference lead source. It's a 1.5% win rate. 0 to 5K deal size, that's a 3.4% win rate. Single threaded only is a 4.1% win rate. Again, it is all on my historical data. Now, you can work with it and spend more time in refining this analysis. But the point is that now you want to go from this analysis to productionizing the analysis. Okay, this is cool, like, but how do I use this in my day to day? So let's say I'm happy with this analysis. It's telling me it will start scoring deals from A to D. I then asked it, can you clean this up and save it to org memory? This is the most critical piece because now it will productionize. So Vaughn has this thing called org memory where you can see it has access to my ICP because I asked it to do an ICP analysis for me. It has access to this win-loss rubric that I was just talking to you about. And it is now saved across the org. So whenever someone asks for this information or asks for any deal risk, it will apply this rubric. And because now I have this, I asked it to apply this to my, let me show you, apply this to my current book of business and tell me next steps, deal risk, and learnings from sales playbook for each open new business deals. And adding dynamic owner filters. So when Sahil logs in, Sahil sees his deals. When Sarah logs in, Sarah sees her deals. If a manager logs in, they see all the deals for their team. And it came back, it built this for me, and I will show you a masked version that I asked it to then use dummy data. I don't want to show you a real pipeline data. And let me make this full screen. And let me, yeah. It came back, and because I also asked it at some point, hey, build me a top-down and bottom-up forecast based on the analysis that you've done. It came back with a top-down forecast, bottoms-up forecast, both from a commit, most likely in best case, whatever your forecast categories might be. You can see historical conversion by stage, which is more top-down, and weighted pipeline. So these two graphs are more for this. But then it is also doing a bottom-up forecast because it has access to every call and email and every buyer communication. So now I can dig into every single deal. It's telling me six out of 61 deals, 31 are grade A, 16 are grade B, some are C and some are Ds. And I can click on any of these deals and I can see what is the risk, what is the next step, and what are our playbook learnings. This is just one example, and you can make this your own, but this is building your own forecasting platform that will be much more accurate than anything else. I'm so confident that if you use this, you can even kill those 3 meetings on a calendar because you won't be hunting for information. You will use this information, then you will go into one and you will say, okay, for a deal, whatever this deal is, it's a dummy name. Help me send the email. Build me a call deck. Build me a proposal template. Build me an order form. You will do every single thing from this platform. So when we were saying let me just go back to the slideshow. You will analyze and you will productionize and you will take action all from the same platform. I showed an example of deal risk, but you can do it for account health, um, where CSMs can use this. You can do this for territory intel. So your BDRs can see which activities lead to opportunity creation and then how can they use that to prospect better. And you can do this for coaching. The thing with a journal purpose harness of what we have built with Vaughn is that these are four individual categories of products that you would buy, and they still don't work. You're still not happy with your score that you get from these systems, and everything is manual. And Vaughn can replace all of those in a single week. So that is what we do. Now, how it works. This is a code by Evan, which is like when you start using Vaughn, like this will be the first thing you'll open and the last thing that you log off. And Kevin will share some of that. Kevin is Evan's colleague. Um, I know that everyone thinking, but can't I do this in Claude? Um, tell me if any of these sound familiar. Everyone gets different answers in Claude. Maybe RevOps uses Claude, but you haven't been able to productionize Claude. And there is no governance or standardization when it comes to Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. And you're stuck building agents, skill files, projects, etc. And everyone is using it in different ways. To solve for this, you need to build a harness, which is what we have built. I won't go too deep into this harness. Sandeep, who's our head of AI, he will talk more about what this harness is and what you need to build. But building this harness is not easy. And if you want to get to all those outcomes, you need to build a harness, and that is what one is. Um, Hopefully, this was helpful in thinking through what one is, what it does. It should feel like a genuine headcount on the RevOps team. And if, in fact, I can say multiple headcounts. And what are some of the use cases? You can take a screenshot of this, but the use cases are across personas, across levels. Um, so, Sarah, thank you so much for listening. I know that we have Kevin, and Kevin will now share about how he and his team are using one.
Yeah, thank you, Sahil. And Kevin, please join us here on stage. Sahil, the question I was going to ask you was, I know everyone's sitting here thinking I could just build this in Claude. So thank you for addressing that before I even had to ask you. Thanks, Sahil. I'll let you head off to the rest of your day. Kevin, thank you for being here. The first way I would love to start this conversation with you is to say, well, what about you? I'm sure that you also, actually, I know you were working on building something yourself before you started using Vaughn. Will you give me the short version of what happened there? I know you were excited about what you were building, and yet you still ended up choosing Vaughn. What was that all about?
Yeah, so I was actually pretty excited about what I was building. I remember sharing with you
I
guys and sharing
remember,
with
yeah.
different people in the community. At that time, I was using primarily GPT, obviously experimenting a little bit with Claude. I was doing a lot of the automations and triggering and kind of data pipeline stuff through Zapier. And then things like Sahil just showed with the pipeline management, the analysis, I was actually doing a lot through Python notebooks. So I had a lot of disparate systems working together. I won't use silos. But each of those tools I think was fine in isolation, but the integration layer, and I think probably a lot of people on this call can understand that that's kind of the toughest part, is getting each of these tools to understand the context kind of between those different sessions, those different kind of projects and processes that we were working. And I think one of the toughest things is that every session, I mean, back then at least, started from zero. So the context around how our business works, what does an MQL mean, right, at demand science? What is our stage-to-stage progression and validation rules? And, who's doing what, who's following the process, was really tough because all those tools, I think, were stateless, so they don't know the organization. And even today, with persistent context and things like Claude and Codex, it still has to go back and reference those things every single time you're talking to it. Keeping those documents up to date can be kind of tough. And so I think a couple of reasons why I went from building my own to actually working with Vaughn is definitely the persistent context. Like Sahil said, like I can be in a conversation with Vaughn working on something and just say, hey, commit that to memory. And I'll give an example of that here in just a minute with one of our use cases. But then suddenly everybody else at our org is all operating on the exact same rules. So they
Mhm.
know what the fields mean. They know what fields to ignore, which, we have a lot of tech deck in our Salesforce system. It's
Who
also,
doesn't, right? I think
yeah,
everyone.
yeah, it's terrible. We've got like 800 fields on our account.
What?
Um, it's also connected to all of my different systems. So listening to calls, being able to read and write to Salesforce, querying our Snowflake was a big use case I'll talk about in a sec. But it can take not just the memory of what I taught it, all these different things mean, but it's able to pull in the context from all the different tools for every question that I ask it. And I would say that that value compounds over time. Because like Sahil said, as I'm going, I don't have to remember to update the context in the memory. I just say, hey, commit that to memory and don't forget. And suddenly, not just myself, my whole RevOps team, all my different stakeholders, all the people that I work with has that same context and that same understanding of how our business really works. It really is a game changer, and I enjoyed building it, parts of it myself. I
Yeah.
I do kind of consider myself a builder, so I love going through those things myself, but at a certain point, it's not like, can I build it, but should I? And I would say that every hour that I'm working on maintaining Zapier, different triggers, different webhooks, it's just an hour of my day that I can't afford anymore. And it's an hour of my day that I can now spend on more strategic tasks, actually working with my teams and understanding the business, long term and at a higher level. And like I just said, it's been a game changer. It's been amazing.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I know I just shared in the chat with our audience here today a build versus buy page that we put together. And the reason that I shared that is if you forget or get curious again about what our point of view is on it, you can refer to it there. But we also have some quotes from some customers that besides Kevin who shared why they changed their mind on the build versus buy question. So I invite people to go take a look at that. And Kevin, they said the same thing. I remember two of them specifically called out to me saying, even if we could do this, which we tried and it wasn't as strong as what we see we get from Vaughn, but even if we could, we're in the business of selling our products, of doing revenue. We are not in the business of building. It's a poor spend of our time. I thought that was a interesting and fun perspective and one that I've heard from you a few times. All right. Kevin, I know you have put together some really fun ways to share how you and your team use Vaughn and how it's gotten rolled out. I will just turn it over to you to share, but I would love maybe as a part of that story, can you share what was the first thing that you tried in Vaughn that made you go, oh, whoa, hold on, this thing is different?
Yeah, would you like me to go ahead and open or share first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to share my screen here. And just like Sahil just showed off, the artifacts here within Vaughn are extremely helpful, not just for presentations like this, but for dashboarding and sharing different insights across the org. But for us, I think the thing that I like the most about the Vaughn story at Demand Science is just that organic or kind of viral growth that happened within our organization. Like Sahil said, our first use case was me, just a RevOps guy. I actually didn't even open it up to my whole team at first. I needed to vet it, right? I needed to see, did it work? Did it work quickly and efficiently? Did it bring a lot of value? And as we kind of dig in here to, um, my journey with Vaughn, I think one of the very first prompts I ever ran was just the forecast, the risk analysis, just like Sahil just showed. We have a
Yeah.
weekly forecast meeting, like I think probably all of us do. And going deal by deal in those meetings is pretty painful. I don't think it's the best way to use our time. And the first one that I ran here was in December, where what I wanted to see was, okay, we've got this forecast. How realistic is it that we hit that, especially with the holidays coming up? So that was one thing that I think would be very challenging to do, just looking call by call and email by email. But I was actually able to do that, see that there were customers and prospects that we were working with that had said out loud or in an email, "Hey, I'm going to be out of office at the end of this year." And we were forecasting those as closing, although we were maybe midway through the month, and that was going to be, a pretty big hill to overcome. So that's the first one that I did where I was like, oh, wow, this is maybe a little bit different from something I could build myself. I shared that with our CRO, Eric, and you can see its quotes. Like he was blown away by what we were able to do there, what risks we could surface and get out to the field immediately.
Cool.
Some of the other use cases that I really started with, closed loss and stalled deal analysis. This is something probably a lot of us run once a month, maybe once a quarter, and then we kind of report those back to the business. That one is really powerful. One of the biggest ones for me is the Salesforce administration. Sarah mentioned it earlier, Sahil mentioned it as well. Myself, I run a team that is probably smaller than I wish it was. I wish I had a dedicated person for every single role, maybe even a couple. If I could have some BI analysts, a whole team would be amazing, but
Yeah.
that's just not realistic for the position we're in, and I think a lot of us are in that spot. And I will say, like, once I realized the administrative capabilities of Vaughn, the ability to read and write back to Salesforce, and its ability to respect the permissions of our users so that we aren't just going crazy and changing a bunch of stuff we shouldn't be. Um, Even with things that I used to never document. Like every Saturday now, I have Vaughn do a full read back of the prior week of all the Salesforce changes, and it creates a Salesforce change log. What changed, what systems were involved, what fields or workflows, flows themselves, what all changed. And then it actually gives me a recommendation too of what might require some enablement. And I created an org memory of what our enablement team considers for different levels of enablement. Should it just be a newsletter or live? So that was really pretty impressive. Um, a couple of the more advanced things that I did after that was more like churn and retention modeling. This one here was one of my favorite things. So we just bought a new tool. I think a lot of RevOps people, we do that pretty often. I had it go through a full integration readiness assessment for our Salesforce instance. It knew the tool that we had bought. It knew where to look in our Salesforce, what fields were overlapping, what data we need to consider merging or maintaining. This part here of onboarding a brand new tool can take, I mean, honestly, with the backlog and the requests coming in a couple of weeks while you're doing this kind of on the side. This works so well that by the time I had my first onboarding call with this vendor, they were blown away at how much progress we had made and said that I was probably a week or two ahead of schedule. So that
Wow.
saved a ton of time, but also helped the implementation go a lot more smoothly.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great use case. I don't think I've heard of that one yet.
Yeah, it's actually really amazing. A couple that I kind of called honorable mentions, but that I think were extremely valuable were these first three here. So once you guys were able to connect into Snowflake, I had lost my BI analyst that had created everything that was working in our Snowflake instance, and I learned enough to keep it living, right, and still functional. Once you guys did that, I had to do a full assessment of our Snowflake environment, every table, every data pipeline, every view, and it actually found um, hundreds, but thousands of orphan tables. Like it's kind of embarrassing, but we had so much data coming from so many different places, and so much was outdated and no longer being used that we actually saved money removing things. So Vaughn not only helped me understand how everything worked, but had a financial positive impact to our business. This one was huge. So my director of RevOps was out on paternity leave for a couple of months.
Mhm.
When he came back, I was able to create essentially like a re-onboarding doc, but it was like a handoff of every change we had made across our systems from conversations I had with Vaughn, but also a full audit of the Salesforce changes. He came back, I threw that in Notion, and within a day, he was caught up on 2 months of work, which honestly
Wow.
would have been impossible. I don't remember everything I do. I don't remember everything I change. I would not have been able to do that without a tool like Vaughn, just period.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think I'd heard that one yet either. That's cool.
Yeah, that was, I mean, again, just eye-opening on how powerful the tool can be. The last thing here, I think a lot of us probably deal with as well. I get emails and Slack notifications whenever we have Apex failures or flow failures within our Salesforce instance. I used to then have to hand that off to my dev or junior dev or admin on the team and say, hey, go inspect this, figure out what we can do. If you guys work around in Apex or Flow, you know that that diagnosis and remediation plan can take a very long time. It's very labor intensive, and you have to understand everything. So what happens when that person that developed the Apex or Flows is no longer here? We're now able to put in, I just copy paste the entire flow error message, give it to Vaughn. Within 2 minutes, we've got a full diagnosis of what happened. We've got a full remediation plan. Not only that, Vaughn can go and fix the flow and put it in a draft status for us to review. I still like human in the loop, but I've had Vaughn build full flows from scratch, go in, review them, have to touch nothing and just activate it. It's extremely impressive and it saves a ton of time. Like Sahil said, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I felt like we had the extra headcount on the team that we just didn't have. Don't want to get emotional, but like some of you are gonna know like how overwhelming the job can be and how impactful having another head on the team can be. This is when I opened it up to the whole RevOps team. I was like, you guys have got to start using this. It's going to save you so much effort day to day, and it truly has across the whole team.
That's awesome.
So this is really where things took off. So I mentioned earlier, I shared that analysis with our CRO. He then, like his first use case, built an entire board deck using Vaughn. Every chart, every graph, every dashboard, every report that I would have sent to him was now done in minutes. Just extremely, extremely impressive. Saved him a ton of time. It's not just me, it's not just RevOps that is, overwhelmed or underwater a lot of times now. Our CRO runs a very large sales organization with one-on-ones and meetings taking up, probably 70% of his time on a week-to-week basis. Finding time to do this used to be a before work or after work endeavor, and he was able to do it again in maybe less than an hour of chatting with Vaughn. Um, he also did more like pipeline dashboards, real-time forecast analysis. He's also bragged about Vaughn on LinkedIn. I know he also chats with the Vaughn team in Slack a lot about how much he's really loving it.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
love his quotes. The marketer heart that I have just warms up every time I see something new from Eric. CROs are hard to impress, so
yeah, they
it's
are.
great
They're
to get
they're
his.
very challenging, I think, because
Yeah,
they expect a lot, which is
yeah,
fine. And they expect it to be right the first time. They just don't have the time to deal with the back and forth, right? And then, speaking of things he's coined, that decision compression, right? So no longer having to go through that fatiguing process of understanding signal, having those conversations, then asking me to build reports, and then do the analysis, which really takes the longest amount of time. So now we're going from decision to signal to decision and execution very, very quickly. And now that Vaughn can enrich your records as well and look across, the different MCPs that we've got connected, like Apollo and others, we can start to understand even more signal, go find contacts that are relevant and create them for us. It's just, again, a game changer, honestly, across the whole org.
cool.
This one was really cool. I actually mentioned it earlier with our CMO now requesting access. Again, I did not push this to anybody. It was just kind of a viral spread where Eric brought up in a call, built this in Vaughn. Now I get a message in Slack from Bill, our CMO. Hey, I need this. What I noticed after a week or two of him working with Vaughn and sending me reports to kind of gut check is that he didn't know how to ask the right questions because he
Yeah.
was newer to our organization and hadn't gotten super in the weeds sometimes before. So understanding the lead to qualified lead to accepted lead kind of pipeline was um, a little foreign to him, right? So he's asking Vaughn these questions and doesn't understand how that works. I worked with Vaughn to do an analysis of our Salesforce without giving it very much context. I read the report back that it gave on that pipeline of lead progression. It literally got it right the first time. I told it to put that into our org memory within maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Now Bill no longer had to remember any of that. It knew that when he asks about lead progression, it knew every field to look at, the correct fields, because we do have a lot, of legacy fields in there that are not giving great data. And now suddenly his reports were, 10 times better than they were before and took, again, minutes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
Kevin, I would love to have you go through this entire thing in detail.
Yeah,
I do want time to get to Sandeep, so how about let's take
sure.
maybe 2 more minutes on what you have here, and then maybe I can take this artifact and share either pieces or all of it with our audience here today, because I know there's a lot of great stuff in here.
Absolutely. I'll jump down here to where we really saw the fire take off. So,
Okay.
when our sales leadership got a hold of this and our SDR leadership, that's really where everybody kind of got really, really excited. So, senior leadership and executives getting that visibility can be tough, but it's also almost table stakes, an expectation. Our president doesn't care if a dashboard takes me 3 days to build, he just needs the data,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
When our senior sales leadership and SDR leadership got a hold of this, they could prepare their one-on-ones, do a weekly deep dive on risks that are active in their portfolio or in their pipeline right now, can go through and actually interact with our different, outreach tools. That really changed things for him. His whole team got excited about it. His colleagues got excited about it. Our SDR leader was just not familiar with how to build reports and get these insights from Salesforce. So she was now able to actually use it to prioritize our white space accounts and prospect accounts that, honestly didn't have a lot of visibility into before. She has a daily refresh on that dashboard so she can come in every day and say, oh, I didn't know about this account and the intent and the signals. We're going to prioritize that. Right from Vaughn, she can assign those accounts out. So she doesn't even have to ask me because she's got the right permissions in Salesforce to do that. So again, just really, really impressive use case. And this is really where we saw, now sales account executives wanted it. Now our solutions architects and consultants wanted it. Now our BI team and the rest of my team wanted it. So that's really kind of the end of the story. But I wanted to really impress upon you all, like, how tough it can be to push out software changes to your org. There was no push on this. It was 100% a pull. It was 100% organic. Just that value is obvious. The time savings is obvious. And, people were beating down my door to get licenses. I mean, still to this day, I'm getting requests almost every day for more and more people that want to get in.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite pieces of using Vaughn is that it isn't in an organization, it doesn't take a lot to get people interested using it and finding value extremely quickly. While we just keep talking, Sundeep, I want to invite you out here with us while Kevin and I wrap up here. Kevin, that's the last thing I wanted to ask you is how was it getting started with Vaughn? What was that process like? Was it onerous, easy? Give a quick overview of that if you wouldn't mind.
Extremely easy. The value again was kind of immediate. First chat or two, just seeing how it can integrate the different tools and get context from everything was incredible. The org memory was the hardest part for me. And when my CSM Jesse shared with me a templated spreadsheet you guys have created, I actually fed the thing right back into Vaughn and asked it to fill out as much as it could. It got like 95% of it done. I then took that spreadsheet, turned it into a few documents, put it right back in org memory, and I think like 80%, 85% of our go-to-market strategy processes, workflows were documented and now it knows everything. So I would say at first I thought that was the hardest part, but then again, 30 to 45 minutes of work back and forth with Vaughn and a little bit of cleanup from me, and it knew everything. It knew everything about how we operate. So yeah, I would say if you're thinking about it, sign up, use it. You will get value out of it in the first day.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate you being here with us today. I'll let
All
you
right.
head out to the rest of your day, but thank you.
Bye-bye.
Sandeep, thank you for joining us here today. I'm so excited that you're here. I don't think you and I have done a webinar together yet, so this is a first for us. So thank you. Um, Audience, everyone who is joining us live or will join us on the on-demand version, I asked Sundeep to join us because he is our head of AI and he's been working on Vaughn for well over a year now. And I wanted him to join us to help share the special magic, although it's not magic, it's engineering, right? But share what is behind Vaughn that makes it special, what makes it behave in ways that get responses like what you just heard from Kevin and like some of the testimonials you'll see if you visit our customers page. Sandeep is going to go into some of the pretty intense. I don't know how intense you're going to get, but some of the technical details of what Vaughn is. So if you are on the more technical side, if you are wondering, really, why can't I build this myself? This is the part for you. I love seeing this presentation. It's really good. Thank you for putting it together, Sandeep, and I'll hand it over to you now.
All right, thanks so much, Sarah. So this is my first webinar, like you said. I'm a little bit nervous, but I could sit in the backstage and hear what Kevin was saying for all day long. So sorry that we had to stop him, but it was lovely. So today I would like to start my presentation with a short story. Many of you might have watched the movie Memento. It was directed by Christopher Nolan. And the protagonist's name in the movie is Leonard, and he has a particular disability, and that is he can't form any new memories. And then, as a result of that, to survive, right, what he does is he carries a Polaroid camera with him. And then every place that he visits, he takes a picture of it, or the people that he meets, he also takes pictures of those people, and then writes notes for himself so that he can refer to them in future. And every morning he wakes up and he goes through this wall of Polaroid images and the notes that he has put together, and he rebuilds his entire world around it, right? And then he starts his day. So the reason I wanted to start with this story is because it's very relatable in today's world, especially in AI. Like the foundation models that we are currently using, right? Like the Opus or ChatGPT 5.5. These models inherently don't have the capability to form new memories. And as brilliant as they are in terms of understanding the world knowledge or the general knowledge, they don't understand your business or learn your business. And they don't understand how you, what, like who your customers are, or like the what kind of deals that you have, or how you do your day-to-day work in your revenue organization. So in order to make them useful or to make them help you with day-to-day work, you would need to do what Leonard has done, right? So you would need to build a wall of MCP connections and then write your own skill files from scratch and then piece it all these things together and then try to orchestrate it yourself. But still, it's kind of like a very patchy and hacky solution. It will be okay to use it for simple use cases, but it doesn't get you far. What you really need is actually a real brain that can understand your business and learn your business on its own. And that's what one is, and that's how we built one to be. So let me show you this chart where we actually measure the level of adoption that the different revenue organizations have in their teams. So every team is somewhere along this curve, somewhere around like in the middle of the curve. So the vertical axis basically measures the depth of intelligence or the level of knowledge about your organization that the agent or the tool understands about it. And then the horizontal axis is about how much effort does it take to make the system productionizable and then to use it. So on the bottom left, what I have is simple Claude or ChatGPT chatbot, which doesn't have any connections to your data sources or anything. And if you remember, like 1 year back, that's how we used to use these AI tools, where anytime you wanted to do any revenue work or like any kind of task, right, you would manually copy paste the context into the chat window. and then ask it to do some work for you. And then if you move one step above, right, now Claude can be connected to some of your data source systems, and then you have to write your own skill files to orchestrate the whole system and then get some work done, like the simpler tasks, but it doesn't get you far enough to do any complex kind of work. So, and then at the end of the curve, what we have is the domain specific harness that is built to do revenue knowledge work, which has context graph, which can understand your business, learn your business, and has org memory so that it can work much more efficiently and robustly. And building a system like this will take several months of engineering, a team of engineers that have to work for at least close to a year to even get to a version of V1 and then forever maintain it and update it. So in this whole picture, where does one stand? One is the one that will take you from all the way from bottom left, from the Claude and ChatGPT chatbot era, to all the way to having your own specific harness that is built for your organization that deeply understands your business. So that's what one is. So how does this work? So I'm just gonna walk you guys through this entire architecture from left side to right side here. On the left side, what I have is structured data sources like Salesforce or Snowflake, where you have customer data or product usage data in Snowflake. And then you might also have unstructured data sources where you have recorded your customer call conversations or emails from customers, and then also Slack conversations with customers or internally you've been discussing about a particular deal. So
Hey,
all of
Cindy,
this, yeah.
I want to interrupt you here. There was some questions about specifically which things we integrate with. Can you just quickly mention how that works? And I know it's a lot. This is not the exhaustive list.
Yeah. So because of the space considerations, I only have listed a few of them here, like the main ones, but we have more than 100 connectors right now that we support. Most of the connectors that you can think of that are used in the industry, we do have support for them.
Thank
And
you.
then even if it is not there, we can quickly build it. Like our engineering team is amazing. Like we churn out integrations and connectors, like bunch of them in every couple of days. So it's pretty quick for us to integrate, even if we don't support it now. But I believe we have like vast support already right now. So
Great. Thank
and
you.
I
Sorry
don't
to
know if that
interrupt.
answers
Thank
your
you.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so these are the kind of data source systems today that you use in the industry, right? And all these data source systems, most of them that are especially important, can be natively integrated to one with using single setup by your RevOps admin or the administrative team. And then once it's done at like workspace level, the entire organization gets a centralized, secure, and production grade access for everyone immediately on day one, so that they don't need to grapple with their own MCP connections or writing skill files, trying to orchestrate it themselves. So it's all like built into it. And then the moment you integrate these data sources, right, one has onboarding agents that we have built for this purpose. They go and crawl through your each and every data source system, trying to understand the schema of your data as in maybe in like Snowflake or Salesforce. It also goes and looks at your latest dashboards that you have in Salesforce or the conversations that you had in Slack, trying to understand what are your business definitions, what are your semantics, right? How do you define your churn? How do you define your qualified pipeline or the sales stages or the sales process? So all of this can be inferred by crawling through your data, and then one can figure it out automatically and then build it for you, which you can review and approve it later. And then in addition, one will also crawl through these data source systems to actually put together a knowledge graph of these data, like stitching different data that exists under different data source systems, trying to understand the ontology, entities, and the relationships between these different data sets. And then it builds this whole knowledge graph so that the agent can rely upon it. And then it has the inherent knowledge of how your data is connected, and then it can use that information to do the analysis accurately. This is similar to how Leonard was doing earlier, like trying to build his own context, stitching it together, right? One will do it at organization scale at the production grade automatically for you. So it's fully managed and automated. And then in addition, one also builds a deal intelligence layer where it actually goes and analyzes your entire deal history, tens of thousands of deals and hundreds of thousands of calls and millions of emails. It will go through them, parse through them, understand them, and then it will look at the factors that are behind your wins and losses. So that complex analysis like churn risk analysis and things like that, which Sahil has talked about or Kevin has talked about, right? Those kind of analysis can be done and served to you in within minutes. And the reason for that is because of this deal intelligence layer where we pre-compute all of that information already so that you don't hit any context limits or rate limits when you're trying to do that analysis. And then we also pre-compute these signals for, let's say, for your open pipeline by analyzing each and every call, Slack message, or email, trying to understand what changed in the deal from day to day so that your data is up to date forever. In addition, we also have the concept of memory, which is shared, which you can configure and govern it at organization level, team level, or at the user level. So you have granular access permission controls so that you can define who gets what kind of access here. So all these four layers together form the context graph for the agent so that it can work much more robustly and it can tackle complex tasks for you. And what do I get out of it once we build this whole context graph, right? So the things that Sahil talked about, like the complex analysis, like building a churn risk model for you. Or let's say if you ask the agent to go and look at all the previous conversations, figure out which customers we have lost due to pricing, analyze them, and then make a customized win back email for me. And then also go and create an outreach sequence for me. So all of that will be handled by one end to end for you. And the reason it could do these tasks is because of these four layers. Without these four layers of the context graph, an agent like Claude that is connected to your data source systems won't be able to do it for you. And then in addition, you can also build your own custom UI on top of one to build your own command center where you can schedule your own tasks there, collaborate with your teammates to build live dashboards, which can be run at particular cadence, whatever cadence that you set, whether it be hourly or daily or weekly. And then every action that one takes has human in the loop approval process built into it. So you have complete audit and logging behind it. So what happens if you take out this middle layer, right? Like the one entirely getting the harness out of the way. That's how you might be currently using it, like hooking up your foundation model to your raw data sources and then asking questions. So you lose this complete single setup that is at enterprise grade or like production grade, and everybody will try to figure out things for themselves and trying to integrate these MCP servers by themselves individually. And there is no single governance that you have observability or transparency into it. And then without the semantics and knowledge graph and deal intelligence, any complex task that you want to solve will readily hit into context limits or the rate limits across your organization. So you won't be able to do any complex tasks. So it is like you have a frontier model, but that never learns your business. So that's what where you'll end up with. So it's like you have an engine, Sarah, but you don't have the car around it. So that's how I would put it. So to put this into perspective, what kind of effort does it take to build it, right? So it will take at least 3 to 5 engineers who will spend several months on it, close to an year, that I would say, to even build a V1 version of it. And I'm pretty sure like how it happened to us, you would scratch all of that and rebuild it at least twice, building it like your entire architecture again. And as difficult as it sounds, but actually building it is the relatively easy part when it's compared to actually maintaining it ongoing basis. So you would have to keep your platform up to date, all the data up to date, analyze all the deal updates that happen on Salesforce or the calls and interactions or emails that happen in real time. Keeping all of those four layers up to date is a humongous task. And so I'll tell you what it took us, right? It took us 12 months to even get here, and we spent about $3.5 million last year for R&D to build one. And then we are on track to spending about like $8 million this year to even make the platform much more robust. So what do you get once you buy one, right? You can skip all the left side pieces that I have talked about. And then on day one, you have the domain specific harness ready for you that deeply understands your business and it learns your business in few days and your entire organization can be productive in week two. So with that, I just want to close my presentation with an important metric that we have hit this week. We have processed over 400 billion tokens on behalf of our customers so far. And then at the pace that our usage is increasing and expanding, right, we expect to cross 1 trillion tokens in the next 3 months. It could be even sooner as well. So but don't take my word for it. You can actually take this deck after the webinar. You can give it to Claude, brainstorm with it, ask your questions there, and then figure it out and make your decision by yourself. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Sandeep, thank you. This was wonderful. I love your final slide. Looks like I need to get the deck from you and send it out to everybody in the post-event email, which I will send to you all. Thank you all for sticking with us. I know that we had a lot of dense content in this webinar. There's a lot to say, a lot to share about Vaughn, and I appreciate you being here with us today or on the on-demand if you're watching this later. I know many of you have to drop. I'm going to finish my normal wrap up, so if you can stick around, please do. Otherwise, no problem. We'll catch up later. This webinar was recorded. I will send the recording in a couple of days. I will also handle all of the questions that were asked in a blog post. But if any of you want to have a conversation with Sahil, please go fill out the demo request form. He's really wonderful at having strategic conversations and not just jumping right into sales, I promise. I've seen him do it many times. Thank you all for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your week, and have a lovely weekend coming up soon. Bye.
Thank you.